Hello, Kathy. How are you?
Good, Zen. It's good to connect.
Yes, you too. Now, let's tell us where you're calling in from.
I'm calling in from Dalat, Vietnam.
Okay. Now, really
Yeah.
quickly, most people don't know where that is and what it's it about. Maybe you can just give us a few sentences description.
Yeah, so we ended up seeking it out because it's one of the places that is considered an eternal spring. So the climate is fairly cool in the 70s, 60s to 70, low 70s all year round. And so it's in the central part of Vietnam and it's in the highlands. So very hilly, mountainous, very lush and green, lots of flower farms and strawberries, and I believe yeah, just a lot of different produce and artichokes. So, yeah.
And what I hear is very beautiful. I've never been there myself, but you beat me to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we
All
were
right.
seeking out a place to have a break from the heat.
Okay. Good. Yeah, we're anxious to hear about your trip too. But before we do that, let's do a quick introduction of who you are and what you do, Kathy.
For sure, yeah. So right now, I'm saying that I'm taking a bit of sabbatical from a career in mental health counseling. And after some life upheaval and doing research on sort of nomad slow travel as kind of expats, my husband and I decided to do some long-term travel while we have the like health and vitality to do it. So that's what kind of brought us to where I'm at right now.
Great. Looking forward to hearing all the details of your trips. But let's go back. Of course, you and I went to
Yeah.
school together.
Yes.
I obviously I know we went to Loyola and Fitzgerald Middle School. But did you go?
Yeah.
Were you at Holy Rosary? I forgot.
I
If you were.
was, yeah. So, like yourself, grew up in Mankato, North Mankato, and then Mankato, and I went to Holy Rosary Catholic School for my grade school through sixth grade, and then I think that's when you and I probably met was when we were at Fitzgerald Middle School. So, yeah,
Okay, and then we graduated Loyola in '94. And honestly, I kind of lost track of you. I didn't know. Honestly, maybe Facebook. I
mm,
kind of saw what you were doing, but I really didn't know like what did you
yeah.
like. Did you go off to school nearby, or I don't know what happened?
Yeah, I think, that happens sometimes. Everyone kind of goes their ways. And I ended up over in Marshall, Minnesota, going to Southwest Minnesota State and did my 5 years actually and with psychology. And then I spent a few years kind of that floating around, trying different things. I ended up working. If it's okay just to kind of veer into this, I ended up working actually at a community college in northern Iowa, and so that's how I ended up in Iowa for most of my adult life, and not really knowing what to do after my stint there, and didn't really feel prepared to do any like higher education at the time. So I actually opened a coffee bar for about 10 and a half years, and that's where I met my now husband. So that's a
Wow.
little recap.
Yes, I do recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I do
Yeah.
remember. Probably through Facebook. I'm sure of like
Yeah.
you down in
Yes.
Iowa running a small
Mm-hmm.
business. So I do remember that
Yeah.
chapter. That's a lot of work,
Yep.
right? I mean, small
Yeah.
business.
Yes.
Okay.
And just figuring out that around that same time, meeting my husband a little later in life, and he had been married previously and had two children. And when we started dating, realizing that the coffee shop wasn't going to probably be like long-term retirement. And he was looking at sort of that 3 to 4 years towards his retirement, actually from civil service as a firefighter. So I went back to school at that time. So I had only been a therapist for about 7 years. Um, so that kind of was the leap from business owner to a different kind of self-employment, I guess, per se. So yeah, yeah.
All right. How do you enjoy Iowa compared to southern Minnesota?
I would say it's fairly the same, probably a little flatter, definitely a lot more just open field, corn and soybeans. beans and hog farms. And the big part about it, I'm sure that you can relate to it, bitter cold of the winters. And we ended up to that point to where we wanted to start finding a place be sort of that seasonal, where we might come back to the States for those warmer summer months. Um, so, yeah.
All right. So then we kind of get now into your chapter of this whole digital nomad thing because I saw you on Facebook
Yeah.
with this epic Asia trip. So tell me how that came about in
Yeah.
terms of traveling the world and living abroad.
Yeah, so do I'll do a quick recap of the last couple years. It actually probably started a few years ago when my husband started kind of delving into a lot of YouTubers and kind of social media personalities talking about the fire, kind of lifestyle, which is financial independence, retire early, segued into finding different, YouTube personalities or people who were already doing sort of that nomad expat living, slow travel, kind of going country to country in a ways for most people it seems to change, which was a big kind of uh, to us. And then in the last couple years, with just some life moves, we ended up in Spencer, Iowa. And some people may know, mostly in the Midwest, that Spencer experienced a major flood in 2024. And our house actually um, we experienced a significant damage to our home, let's just say. And it was one of those points where you either try to salvage it and get out from underneath or sell it at it as is. Lots of just very stressful time. We were living in, two different temporary furnished housing and that sort of thing. And we ended up, because we were financially also responsible, we were able to manage, kind of being able to walk away from it, selling it as it is. And then on top of that loss and grief, I also ended up losing my mom over the summer.
Oh,
And
it's
yeah,
tough.
so I lost my dad in 2019 and then having lost my mom in August, then there was sort of this also gift of inheritance that was unexpected. So
Oh.
all these sort of things culminated together. My husband already being retired, and we really thought, life is just too flippin' short, and we didn't really have a home, so it felt like, why not now? And we were seeking out that ability, like I said earlier, a little bit of, that moderate climate, where can our dollar go the farthest? And that's kind of where I'll segue into why Asia is. We really looked at, again, the quality of living, um, just the pace of slowing down, the food being more fresh, less processed. And we initially actually didn't have probably Vietnam at the top of the list. Definitely kind of Japan, Thailand, Bangkok, which we're going to be getting towards the end of the year. And our stop was actually Taiwan, which surprised us both. We actually chose to fly into Taipei, Taiwan as our first stop, mostly because the flight was the least expensive, and the alternative was Tokyo, which seemed really overwhelming, like in size. So that we kind of landed in Asia. So
Now, is this like a multi-month like itinerary? Do you or are you planning on kind of
yeah.
settling down half the time in Asia and then coming back, or what was your plans?
Yeah. So our initial goal is one full year of travel, with the idea of hopping home possibly in the springtime, kind of reconnect and see family. So we left this past May. We literally land in Taipei, Taiwan on May 6th, and we spent almost, I think, around 85 days. So we're staying in each country based on the limits of our passport. So a lot of research involved. I've got like a spreadsheet that lists like how many days can we stay in each country? Do we need a visa on arrival? All those details. And so we stayed in Taiwan, kind of traveled around the whole island, which is just really wonderfully accessible by train, like the whole circumference of it. So I think, like I said, about 85 days in Taiwan. And then we went to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which really wasn't what we were expecting. It was a little too busy, too chaotic. It was just also very hot still. And after spending the summer in Taiwan, we were like maxed out. Like it was really almost like affecting our health. It was so hot. So that's what again kind of brought us to Dalat, Vietnam. So we did shorten our initial thoughts on Malaysia. And we initially thought we would also stay there close to 90 days, but we ended up staying in Malaysia just a little over a month. And then our plan from here is to utilize up to the 90 days in Vietnam. So we're looking at about maybe 80 days. And from Dalat, we're hoping to go to possibly either Da Nang or Trang. Kind of again, following the weather, kind of watching out for, all those different factors. If a lot of people don't know, this is very tropical, subtropical, a lot of, rainy seasons, typhoons. So we've had a lot of interesting weather experiences on our even just few months so far that we never would have, being from the Midwest. So, yeah.
Okay. Very neat. Yeah, a lot of different diverse places that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, I guess, traveling and going to new places, there's always ups and downs, and it's not
Mm.
always rosy in terms of, maybe local culture to the food or
Yeah.
anything that stands out that you want to talk about, either
Oh
good or
gosh.
bad, of any
Oh,
places.
well, you're absolutely right. For all of the exhilaration of, the immersing. Yeah, gosh. Immersing yourself in a culture, it can be very overwhelming. We have definitely found that there's a bit of almost like a travel hangover, just the initial transportation to get from country to country. Although it's very convenient, you can hop on a plane and get country to country within an hour or two. There's still that fatigue, again, adjusting to the culture, the traffic, the language, the currency, definitely a lot of aches and pains. I mean, don't want to be like sugarcoat this at all. Um, any couple or any person thinking about going into an endeavor of this type, to really think about taking your time, being patient with yourself and others, a lot of communication, a lot of growing pains in that way. Because even just thinking about my husband and I, we went into it with the idea of what we were looking for. We like, the idea of the climate and community and nature. And it's all an experiment. You really don't know until your feet are on the ground. You can watch hundreds of YouTubers, but it's not the same. So it's definitely had, yeah, like you said, lots of just some ups and downs. Can be very frustrating at times. Even you think about technology, being prepared to travel internationally with a phone and how to figure that out. Um, it's just a lot of things to think about. So there was a lot of conversations before we left, and definitely since we've been on the road.
Okay. Now I know, obviously, we mentioned we have a shared background in growing up in the Midwest and southern
Yeah.
Minnesota and Mankato. So, what was
Mm-hmm.
now culture shock or going to
Mm-hmm.
Asia? What was something that you found surprising that you didn't expect, or maybe you were taught or you thought a different way growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and then now you're shocked that Taiwan is this way or Vietnam is that way, or anything that
Mm.
stood out to you?
Gosh, I think it's like you just don't know what you don't know. And if at least for me, this that naivety of, you can read about a culture in a book or, in a social studies class. And um, you know, I I really compliment you, Vin, for all of the work you've done in the last year or two or a few years with, your, telling your story. I felt like I learned so much from you, just going back and watching some of your videos to give you a little plug here too, the work you're doing. But just thinking about history and especially we haven't been to Cambodia yet, but just thinking about Vietnam and like Cambodia, and their history is so fresh. It's not that long ago, and you think about you see these people, the community here, the individuals who are just so hardworking to take care of each other. What I really appreciated, I noticed in talking a little bit with some individuals, as much as you can, and the challenging, language difference, but learning about how families do live together in almost like if you consider it like a little block or a part of a block in a neighborhood, the multi-generational living, the entrepreneurship, very generous. We've run into so many people that are just so helpful or kind. And the other thing that, my husband and I have just sort of commented between us is we're just all human beings trying to just make it, make a life. And just seeing that humanness, I think, has been really important, especially with some of the volatile, adversity that's happening. Um,
Wow, that's
so
really powerful. That's a
yeah.
neat reflection. That's so true.
Hmm.
I see
Yeah.
that too. Like everywhere I've traveled and live abroad, they have these stereotypes of what they are like or what the country's like.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you get down to it? We're all like the same type of people. Just like you said, we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to make a living, raise a
Mm-hmm.
family, putting food on the
Mm-hmm.
table, and
Mm-hmm.
preparing for a better and brighter future. That's everyone is to try
Mm-hmm.
to do that around the world, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
who you are or where you come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Were you kind of surprised by any maybe development or technology? Or I'm guessing like Taiwan, most people probably don't know it's
Mm.
very developed. It's got like
Mm-hmm.
subways, trains, and you mentioned it's easy to get around. Like
Oh my gosh,
imagine that in
yeah.
the U.S. We don't really have, I mean, other
Oh,
than Amtrak, which is behind the
yeah.
times. But any comment on that?
Oh
Where
my
you've gone
gosh.
to?
Oh, well, the thing that's really been kind of uh I don't know what call it a catch 22 about starting with Taiwan, which Taiwan was nowhere on our radar. Literally, one of the only reasons why we chose it again is because of the flight cost, and it was not as intimidating as Tokyo as a starting point. And we are having a hard time not comparing everything else to Taiwan. I mean, the transportation, the civil engineering when it comes to like the traffic and the flow of traffic, and it is a highly scooter driven um, community or culture. It's just insane. But the way that it flows and like pedestrian, like we never felt like a little bit scared for our life, maybe like we do in Vietnam. Vietnam has a very different go at it. There's no signals. There's kind of roundabouts, but they don't really use them as roundabouts, and you feel like you're playing Frogger as you're trying to across the street. So if you think about that as a comparison and just like one little piece of it, Taiwan was a treat. Like yeah, the transportation system, the subway system. Yeah, we really enjoyed it. We already talk about going back. Um,
Wow. Yeah, I've heard good things about
yeah,
Taiwan too, and I heard they're like super
yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Oh,
Very,
just very
very,
friendly.
yeah,
Yeah. And
friendly,
we've
polite, open.
yes. Oh yeah. I would say yeah, maybe a touch on the conservative side. Um yeah, again very family, I think oriented and hardworking and yeah, we just ran into so many kind people. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, since you're in Vietnam now, maybe you can
Mhm.
touch upon. Did you go to Ho Chi Minh City, and what was that like? Because as you know, I spent the last
Yeah.
5 years or so there, 2018 to 2023. I'm in Florida now, but yeah, so a couple
Yeah.
of years ago, I was there.
We haven't yet. We really have just been in Dalat since August 25th. So this has been really our first stop so far. So yeah, we feel like we haven't really quite seen a whole lot of Vietnam in that way. I mean, Vietnam is a massive country, north to south, and from what we've heard, and I'm sure you could fill this in, the diversity of the culture from north to south, like so we are looking forward to probably not on this go round, but that ability again, going to country, we're looking at going from past most likely Da Nang for September, or sorry, October, and then we're going to go to Thailand um, through the end of the year, and then our thought is to come back to either Hanoi in the northern part, exploring up there, like in Ninh Binh, Haiphong, or possibly Ho Chi Minh City. So we'd definitely be open to any suggestions from you as well. So
Yeah,
any
sure.
insights?
I could
Yeah,
definitely fill you in. Just the lot. You're
yeah,
pretty nice choice there. What I know, again, I've never been there yet, but
hmm
it's
yeah,
very like down to the earth. Like you said, it has lots
hmm
of good agriculture, local agriculture.
hmm
That's what it's famous for.
hmm
It's got the French, a little bit architecture there,
hmm
and it's
yeah,
kind of a big tourist destination for locals as well as foreigners too. But I'm pretty sure you're probably
yeah.
shocked at the pricing, like in terms of.
Oh yeah.
Can you give people an idea of like
hmm
accommodations or even eating out?
Yeah.
Like, what's that cost?
Um, sometimes you feel, I mean, trying not to feel guilty because it's relative. The cost of living, which was, again, one of the major factors in our goal of coming to Asia or Southeast Asia, um, is the costs. And I really try to stay away from saying the word cheap because I don't like that word, the connotation of it. It's a matter of it's inexpensive to us, right? Again, it's also relative. So on any given day, we track all of our expenses and we can have lunch, dinner, couple of times going for coffee, and we are spending maybe $20 to $30 a day. Um, I think like tonight, um, we had two really nice meals. Like we've been trying to eat a lot of vegetarian and vegan, but like a really great pho, which is a rice noodle dish, tons of vegetables, really great broth. Both of us had a dish plus shared some spring rolls, and the whole total came to I think less than $6. So, I
Wow.
mean, it is just like you almost feel like it's like robbery, and so
Yeah.
just sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, should we leave more? But that isn't also part of the culture, right?
Right.
So just really kind of waiting, being conscientious of those factors as well. Yeah.
That's so funny. You mentioned pho dinner with your
Mm.
husband. I mentioned I was in Miami yesterday for the day, and my wife and I
Oh,
had a Vietnamese restaurant. We had pho too, but it came out to
oh,
$50, so a
oh,
lot, substantially more.
yeah, yeah. I know. We just look at each other and we're like, what? And, then we compare it to back home and think about the second you sit down and you get two entrees, maybe an appetizer, or especially drinks, and then you're paying, another 20% tip, you're automatically looking at $50, $60. And yeah, it's really, really inexpensive here. Our hotel, I think, let's see, we're staying for 2.5 weeks, and we just moved hotels actually yesterday to be in something a little bit more like, it's called a king suite. So it has a little seating area with like a kitchen. It doesn't have a sink, but it has a bar and a refrigerator. And I think it came to around $570, let's say $575 for, I think it was 14 or 15 nights. And, a room like this in the States would probably be like three to $500 a night.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So it's just, it feels like it's giving us that relief, that release from the burdens, I guess. I don't want to say burdens, but, some of the factors that led us to travel was just the cost of living back home. We didn't want to just work to pay the bills. And the big part about it, and this is probably a good piece of just general information for listeners, is, think about healthcare costs. One of the driving factors was the idea of not only the cost for like insurance, um, but also the cost of healthcare when you look at the way that you're living. So it's the lifestyle, and going to the doctor is a lot less expensive. Um, One experience that we had when we were in Taiwan is we had landed in Kaohsiung, I believe, and I got like a sinus infection. So we ended up walking into, it was actually a municipal clinic. Um, more for citizens, but we could still go as a foreigner, and took a ticket. Took your number, and you waited in line for your number to come up, and you had a little meeting with the doctor, and the doctor had really good English, and a lot of them study in the States, and walked out with an antibiotic and two other medications, and I think the whole total was $27.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And then if you think about like insurance costs for health insurance, is we were paying out of pocket because back in the States we were paying out of pocket because my husband is retired and I was self-employed. And I think our insurance was close to or over $1,500 a month.
Wow.
And now that we're traveling, we're using a special company where you can get medical health coverage. And I believe both of us are covered for under $300 a month.
Mm.
Now, thinking about that, it's going to be, worst case scenario, it's not going to be everyday clinic visits, again, because that cost is so low out of pocket. So, I mean, there's just a lot of different factors that led us to be, you know, drawn to this idea of a lifestyle. So, yeah.
And then you don't have, like in America, for a
Mhm.
regular family, you have to have at least two cars, right, to get to work,
Oh,
husband and
yeah.
wife. So you got the
Yep. We sold
insurance, you got the
those.
car payments. Yeah, it all adds up, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Oh, yeah.
every 6 months I get this huge insurance
Mm.
or car insurance bill, and then I'm,
Mhm.
going to Costco every other week just top off
Yeah.
the gas tank, and
Mhm.
so it's just never ending.
Yeah.
But
It's
whereas like
it's
you could probably take Grab, right? People
oh,
don't
yeah.
might not know that, but it's like the Uber
Mhm.
app on your phone, and
Yeah.
then you call the Grab motor scooter driver, whatever. It's like $1 or $2 one-way trip, right?
Oh,
It's
it
just
is.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, and I will say that Delotte in itself as a community is a little challenging because of the layout. It is, again, it's very hilly here, so the town is spread out along all these different like hillsides, and then into the valley where there's a lake. So that it doesn't have like a really big centralized city center. It has a little bit of downtown. So it does take a little bit, it'd probably be a solid 35, 40 to 50-minute walk to get from one side of the lake to the other and up into a neighborhood. So yeah, like a Grab ride is, less than $2. And you feel like, wow, I'm going a mile and a half for, like, why am I going a mile and a half? But it's because of the layout.
Oh, I see.
Creates like a significant walk, and also the traffic. So,
Right.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
we sold our cars. It's a very weird feeling. It's a gives you a lot of, you know, butterflies in the stomach, like, oh my God, like, oh crap, what are we doing? But it's also a very freeing feeling to, not have that, like you said, car payment, car maintenance, gas, and yeah, all of it.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Mm.
Wow, what a great adventure. I just had the same kind of experience, similar experience just a few years ago when I was based in Vietnam and doing what you were doing, going to
Yeah.
all these neighboring countries.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, you said you might go to Da Nang. I spent a year there in 2018, so I could fill you in
Mm.
on that. I think you might, I don't know if you're in, for a beach person or what, but that's more centrally located too, so I think you can walk around and you
Mm-hmm.
should be able to, not, it's not like spread out or hilly like where your current situation is.
Yeah. And we've definitely heard that it's grown a lot in terms of expat community. I can imagine, especially even since 2018. Um, yeah, more and more people I think are catching on.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And
Mm.
any other last minute advice or something you can share with people, kind of your insights or anything like that?
Yeah, I think just keep an open mind. Like I said before, just like be really patient with yourself and whoever you're with or with others, because again, everyone's just trying to do their best, and it's all figure outable, I guess you could say. Google Translate. I think there's also just a good smile and a nod. Learning some basic, hello and thank you can go a long, long way. Um, yeah. It's just never too late to, I'd say, if anyone has had even just the slightest idea in their mind about travel, is just start plunking away a couple few $100s and, um, you know, just get a start to it. There's a lot of different opportunities out there, a lot of variety of ways to travel. Just, yeah.
Yeah, that's well said, Kathy. And
Yeah.
the part of the country where we grew up in Minnesota,
Mm.
most people really don't even think of outside of America's borders, right? I mean, look at our
Oh
classmates.
no.
Who has
Yeah.
ever traveled to even
Mhm.
like Europe, Mexico, Canada, or
Mhm.
even, let alone,
Mhm.
I guess, Asia, what you and I
Mm.
have done. So,
Yeah.
it's easy, right? You graduate from college, you gotta get your job, you get settled, you get in your,
Mhm.
that type of thing in the next 20, 30 years before you know it. You really haven't really
Yeah.
explored the world. So,
It's that Western mentality. Yeah.
yeah, it's unfortunate
Yeah.
sometimes too because people really
Mhm.
don't know how rich the world is outside of the U.S.
Mm.
And a lot of times we think like America's number one, we're rich, this or that, but
Mm.
actually a lot of people have richer lives that they live.
Mm.
Not necessarily monetary, but in terms of like family
Mhm.
experience and just it's not
Mhm.
all poverty. What people think, there are a lot of rich people
Mhm.
in Vietnam, that just
Mhm.
puts Westerners to shame. You see it's a very
Mm.
significant and everything in between, of course, too. But yeah, so
And I
good.
will, yeah, I'll definitely add to, that's probably been a part of the adjustment is slowing down. That yes, there's definitely a true culture of like really, really hardworking individuals, like um, in not even here, but I think in other culture, you said, European countries, they just work differently too. Um, and they also, I think, know how to celebrate and how to rest. Um, so just like, yeah, slowing down and like, I really liked how you use the word richness. Like, how can you make your life more rich? And sometimes it is just sort of being more present to it, getting out of your comfort zone. Um, yeah.
Yeah, very well.
Mm.
All right, Kathy, really appreciate connecting again, and
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your story and your experiences. I'm sure someone out there is going to find a lot of value in that.
Yeah, and I would definitely offer if someone wants to connect, just to through you, to just go ahead and reach out to Vin, and I'd be happy to chat with anyone who's interested.
Yeah, I would love to hear like your follow up too in the next couple countries or
Yeah,
cities you go to and see what your perspective is at that location. So we'll be
yeah,
in
that'd be
touch.
great. Definitely.
All right. Thanks, Kathy.